Hello, cosmonauts. Today we are going to be exploring what Reddit asks. What historical event is almost unbelievable when you read about it? Let's discover it. Answer 1. When Japanese farmers were interned during WW2, there are cases of their neighbors buying their lands for super cheap to keep the land in order until their neighbors returned. There were, of course, people who seized the moment to gain land for themselves, but there were also good people who recognized that what happened to their neighbors was unjust. Similarly, during the Great Depression, farmers hanging nooses from barns at auctions as a threat to bankers and anyone who tried to spend large amounts of money on the foreclosed property. The communities often worked together to buy back the property for the folks who lost it. Answer 2. One of the most unbelievable and often overlooked historical events is the Great Penguin Uprising of 1857 in Antarctica. According to obscure reports from early Antarctic explorers, a colony of emperor penguins, believed to have been influenced by exposure to discarded expedition equipment, allegedly organized themselves into a structured society that rivaled human civilization in complexity. Eyewitness accounts, though often dismissed by mainstream historians, describe penguins forming intricate social hierarchies, developing rudimentary tools, and even establishing a system of governance based on pebble-based trade. The supposed rebellion occurred when an overzealous team of whalers attempted to claim a particularly sacred iceberg, leading to what has been described as a highly coordinated penguin offensive. Reports claim that the penguins used diversion tactics, strategically rolling snowballs downhill to confuse the explorers while a select group infiltrated their camp, stealing supplies and sabotaging sleds. The humans, unable to withstand the penguins' relentless flipper-driven assault, were forced to retreat, leaving behind journals that chronicled the event in bewildered detail. Though skeptics argue that extreme cold and isolation may have induced hallucinations in the explorers, proponents of the theory maintain that remnants of an ancient penguin civilization may still be buried beneath the ice, waiting to reclaim their place as the true rulers of the frozen continent. Answer 3. There was a Japanese man called Tsutomu Yamaguchi, who was on his way to work in Hiroshima in 1945 when he saw falling through the sky, 2 miles from where he stood, what ultimately turned out to be the atomic bomb. He had just enough time to take cover in a ditch as the bomb detonated, and miraculously he survived. Somehow the Hiroshima train station was still operational, and so Yamaguchi, battered, bombed, and bruised, decided to board a train to his family home so he could recover in Nagasaki. 3 days later, Yamaguchi was called into work to explain what he saw, which he did. At work, as he began to tell the story of what happened, the second bomb dropped. It was the reinforced concrete walls around him that saved him this time, and Yamaguchi quickly ran to find his wife and son. Ground temperatures in the city reached 4,000 degrees Celsius, and radioactive rain poured down. The family's home was destroyed, but Yamaguchi's wife and son had thankfully been out shopping, looking for burn ointment for Yamaguchi, when the bomb fell, and they'd survived. Despite this ordeal of having survived 2 nuclear explosions and subsequent radiation exposure, Yamaguchi went on to live till 93 years of age. He died in 2010 after being recognized by the Japanese government as a Niju Hibakusha, or twice-bombed person. Answer 4. They were actually supposed to settle around New York City today. They knew that was a great harbor since Verrazano, and most recently, Hudson and Block did a bunch of adventuring there for the Dutch trying to find the Northwest Passage. They also thought about relocating to Boston Harbor, but it was too cold in the year to go. They really picked the worst time to go to North America, and they were very ill-prepared. Doesn't help one of the ships was sabotaged and had to go back to England twice. Answer 5. That all of the hard drives, CDs, zip disks, and dozens of boxes of evidence that was photographed at Jeffrey Epstein's house in NYC, every bit of it went missing between the premises being sealed off and a search warrant being issued. Imagine that. Closets with every shelf lined with labeled and cataloged and very well organized crates and boxes full of data. You come back an hour later and every scrap of it is gone, and not one person on scene saw anything, heard anything, spoke with anybody else. Answer 6. The Romanov children were wearing undergarments that had been stitched with so many jewels they survived the initial round of gunfire. The basement room was so full of smoke from all the shots, they had to let the air clear before killing the children with headshots and bayonets. The execution of the Romanov family took over 20 minutes, with most of the children suffering until the very end. Hey you, if you enjoying the video, subscribe for more histories. Answer 7. Truth be told, I now fully understand how Nazis came into power because of this. Turns out, populaces are prone to voting in anger when they feel like they aren't where they want to be in life. And a person, despite their own general failings, confidently says, "I'll show you the way." People will latch onto it. It's unfortunate what will become of this. I just have to study it as best as I can since I admittedly know my white, male, Jewish ass is going to be mostly unharmed from the terrible orders that will be made. Answer 8. The Great Molasses Flood. On January 15, 1919, a 50-foot-tall molasses tank in Boston's North End burst, releasing 2.3 million gallons of molasses in a 25-foot wave. The wave, traveling at 35 miles per hour, destroyed buildings, damaged cars, and trapped horses. The flood killed 21 people, ranging in age from 10 to 78, and injured around 150 more. Many victims suffocated in the syrup. The rescue effort lasted 4 days, with responders struggling in quicksand-like conditions. Answer 9. The Affair of the Poisons. At the court of Louis the Sun King, an argument can be made that the French bid for conquest of Central Europe was brought down by Satanism. Well, indirectly. Goes like this. In the hothouse atmosphere of Versailles, aristocrats fought each other for the attentions of the king. No holds, or holes, barred. Desperate for money and attention, aristocrats patronized fortune tellers and charlatans of all sorts. Eventually, these professional fraudsters realized that all their patrons wanted basically two things: to know when rich relations would die, leaving all their money to them, and to gain the affections and attention of the king. So gradually the fraudsters went from telling fortunes to providing magic, designed to bring about these desired outcomes, selling inheritance powders, that is, poisons, to deal with unwanted relations, and selling charms to attract the king's attentions. To make these more impressive, they increasingly surrounded these sales with an atmosphere of black magic, eventually holding satanic rituals complete with the blood of infants and other impressive props. High aristocrats were involved. Some current and former mistresses of the king allegedly performed in these satanic rituals, acting literally as naked altars bent over to receive a blasphemous baptism, designed to entice the king's wandering eye through the devil's help. Sort of like a heavy metal album cover come to life. None of the evidence for any of this meets modern scrutiny, of course. But whether it was true in detail or not, it was certainly believed to be true at the time. The notion that fraudsters would use Satanism to extract cash out of gullible aristocrats isn't inherently unbelievable. Eventually, the scandal broke, and some 30 people were executed, mostly the fraudsters and underlings. The high aristocrats were just forced into exile and disgraced. One of these was the Countess of Soissons, who left her son behind at the French court. Her son was bullied and humiliated, in part due to his unfortunate appearance, but largely due to his mother's disgrace. He wanted to be a soldier when he grew up. This ambition was personally ridiculed by King Louis, who made a point of publicity stating that the scrawny and ugly sons of disgraced satanic mothers do not become soldiers of France. Rather, he should become a priest. The kid left France with a massive chip on his shoulder. He went to Austria, became a soldier, and was instrumental in defeating the armies of Louis at the decisive Battle of Blenheim. The son, of course, was Prince Eugene of Savoy. Without the satanic scandal, he would probably never have left France, and history would be very different. Answer 10. The story of the Titanic is still unbelievable to me. Not just the sinking, but how confident people were that the ship was unsinkable. The sheer scale of the disaster, with so many lifeboats not even being filled to capacity, and the class divisions that played out during the evacuation, it's like something out of a tragic novel. The fact that it happened over 100 years ago, but it still feels so relevant and surreal, shows how some events just stay with you. It's hard to wrap your head around how such an advanced piece of technology at the time could have met such a brutal fate. Answer 11. The second person to be executed in Connecticut was tried for having sex with a pig. The evidence was that a pig was born deformed and looked like the accused. Puritan colonies did not fuck around with bestiality. The Welsh got their reputation as sheepshaggers because the penalty for bestiality was less than livestock theft when one got caught in England. Meanwhile, you would be banished from a New England town for even joking about bestiality. The Tuskegee experiment. In the 1940s, the US government passed out what appeared to be a vaccine to black servicemen. It was really syphilis, and the goal was to use innocent people to test symptoms. It took decades before they were caught. and by that time, most of the veterans had succumbed to either the illness or old age. Note, this wasn't the first time they did this, though the second time was to Marshall Islanders rather than Americans. Doctors were sent in to convince the natives that they were distributing medicine. With no translators provided, the Marshallese had no way of knowing that they were being exposed to radiation. To make sure everyone was doused like a superhero, the US government didn't limit themselves to giving out samples, but made it rain radiation. Children would go to play in the snow and come back with burns.
That was enough for today, cosmonaut. I'll wait for you in the next travel.
Ryan Little.